Thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Marc Hedrick. I'm the president and CEO of PLUS Therapeutics. Okay, great. So a few company highlights. The company, PLUS Therapeutics, is traded on NASDAQ and has a proprietary nanoparticle drug development platform. We have 3 clinical stage radiotherapeutic and chemotherapeutic drugs, and our lead drug is funded by the US National Institute of Health and National Cancer Institute. We have a very capital efficient virtual drug development model and a veteran core team, as Randy said, that's based in Austin, Texas. We have about 12 to 18 months of cash currently, and we have a number of forthcoming key milestones in 2020 and 2021. So as I mentioned, the company has a proprietary nanoparticle development platform, and there are actually 2 aspects of the platform. The first is really the ability to make any nanoparticle design and place within it almost any active pharmaceutical ingredient. We married to that platform in 2020, earlier this year, a deal that allowed us to encapsulate and deliver a number of unique radionuclides for cancer therapy on the right. And we have the ability to deliver a number of different kinds of diagnostic and therapeutic radiation in a liposomal format. I'll explain why that's important in a moment. As I mentioned, the company has 3 clinical stage drugs. Our lead drug is RNL, which is a BMEDA chelated rhenium nanoliposome, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. Our lead indication is for recurrent glioblastoma or brain cancer, and we're completing a US dose-finding trial as we speak. Plus, there are a number of other indications for that drug as well. Plus, we have 2 other clinical stage chemotherapeutic liposomal drugs, Dosiplus and Doxoplus, which I'll discuss also in a moment. But let me lead off with the radiotherapeutic platform. In the radiotherapeutic space, it's a space characterized by a number of innovative and impactful drugs that have been brought to market recently that have the ability to impact a number of really difficult to treat diseases and create a lot of corporate value. The market itself for these drugs includes a very growing background of anticipated growth for the market over the near term, and a number of potential radioisotopes, both isotopes that can be used therapeutically, but also diagnostically. Our lead drug, RNL, uses rhenium, which is a heavy transition metal that's produced in a nuclear reactor. And it's unique in that it's a dual energy emitter, meaning it emits a particle that allows you to kill rapidly dividing cancer cells, but it also emits a gamma ray that allows us to image where the therapy is in the body at any point in time, providing very important quality assurance and also data with respect to prognostication of its impact on the patient. Now, a little bit about glioblastoma. Glioblastoma is a death sentence. Essentially, everyone that gets it dies these days. There are about 3.5 to 4 patients per 100,000 patients, 100,000 people that get the disease, and about 100% of them recur after primary treatment. And primary treatment is surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy, but none of it is curative, and it's just palliative. The space for recurrent treatment for glioblastoma is all over the place. There are really no good treatments, and the last approved treatment was back in 2011. So there's really an opportunity to develop new therapies for what is a very tragic and difficult disease to treat. So we think we're well on the way to solving the treatment of recurrent brain cancer with a multimodal therapy using our RNL compound. And so there are kind of 6 key things to understand with respect to filling out the puzzle for treating these patients. First of all, I mentioned our rhenium isotope and the unique properties that rhenium provides as a diagnostic and a therapeutic. We chelate it in a proprietary technology that allows us to load it into nanoscale particles. We then use preoperative AI and computerized planning to determine exactly where in the brain to place the compound. So we're bypassing the blood-brain barrier, going right into the brain with a small needle stick in the skin and a catheter into the brain. And then we use 3D stereotactic delivery, where those coordinates are loaded into a computer into the operating room, shows the surgeon exactly where to place the catheters, and then through something called convexed or pressure-based delivery, we infuse the drug in up to 4 catheters, and then we image the patient in real time because we can see the drug as a gamma emitter. We can see exactly where it is. And it takes really the confluence of all 6 of these things to enable this therapy to potentially work. And I'll show you some pictures of that in a moment. But why do we think this works? And in this preclinical slide, it shows some of the basic information in 3 panels supporting the potential efficacy and safety of this drug. On the left side, it shows preclinically in animals that this RNL therapy is retained for many days after its injection. So unlike a pill or an IV drug where you have to give it over and over, you inject this once and it sticks around for a 90-hour half-life. So you get a lot of time on the tumor. Furthermore, it disperses throughout the tumor but doesn't get pulled away by the blood supply. So you're putting a lot of irradiation in the tumor. In the middle panel, we show through a number of studies that have been published that we can make a significant improvement in survival in animals with a model of brain cancer that have been treated with RNL. And then finally, we've been able to give up to and over 20 times the amount of irradiation. So 20 times the amount of radiation that you can get with the gold standard, which is normal external beam radiation therapy. So thus far, we found no maximum tolerated dose for this drug. So I mentioned external beam radiation therapy. How does it compare? So unlike external beam irradiation, which is the gold standard, including surgery for this treatment, there's no exposure to the external tissues. We deliver our treatment in a targeted fashion directly into the brain. And rather than give up to about 80 to 40 gray, which is how radiation is measured, we now, in our latest patients, are giving well over 500 gray. And radiation is the best known way to treat brain cancer tumor cells. Finally, it's delivered in a one-shot treatment, so a single procedure, versus for radiation in the brain using external technique, it means 4 weeks of daily visits to receive fractionated aliquots of that radiation. So we're currently, as I mentioned, in a phase 1 dose-finding trial called RESPECT. We're actually just treated the first patient a couple weeks ago in the 6th cohort. That will treat tumors up to about a golf ball size, which is most recurrences. Thus far, there have been no serious adverse events observed, and 2 patients have lived over 30 months. And as shown in the earlier slide, the average survival for these patients is about 8 months. So we've got some early signs of efficacy in this trial when we were able to get adequate dose to the patient. And as I mentioned, this trial is actually being funded by the US National Institute of Health. So as a dose-finding trial, we've carefully increased the dose from 1 millicurie up to now about 22 millicuries, and from less than 1 cc up to almost 9 cc's. The volume, as I mentioned, will cover tumors up to about a golf ball size, and we anticipate that cohort 6, which will be approximately 6 patients, will complete the trial and provide our phase 2 dose. And let me explain how this works for a patient. If a patient's diagnosed with brain cancer, they have a biopsy, they know it's glioblastoma, they're treated by whatever the primary brain treatment is. And if it recurs, they come back, they're proven to have the tumor recurrent by a biopsy. We do preoperative scanning and then in silico or computer-based treatment planning as to where we put the catheters and how we place them in the exact depth and 3D coordinates. That data is loaded into the computer into the OR, and the next day those catheters are placed into the brain, secured to the bone, and left for a couple of days while we infuse the RNL therapy into the brain. The RNL is infused under a pressure head through up to 4 catheters, and we do that under a nuclear medicine scanner so we know exactly where we're delivering it. So if we need to adjust the flow rate or the catheters, we can do that in the hospital. It takes a few hours for the treatment to be delivered, and then the next day the catheter is removed and the patient goes home, and really that's it. We have serial scanning right now in the trial. We follow the patients out with scanning up to 8 days. And let me show you what this looks like and some of the scans for these patients. So these serial SPECT and CT scans show excellent tumor coverage out to day 8. This is the baseline MRI or CT, and the SPECT scan, the purple showing the targeted area around the tumor. This is the tumor on 3 different views, and the red and the different colors indicate the intensity. Red, most intense radiation, and then the other colors are less intense as you go radially out from the tumor. So we're showing that we're able to deliver this in a very targeted fashion, only to the tumor with very little exposure to normal brain tissue. Plus we can target just the tumor. This is actually patient 13 in cohort 4. This is another patient, similar story, excellent tumor coverage. You can see the target, the delivery, and the retention out to 8 days. So you're having multiple days of time of this radiation on the tumor. This is patient 14, which shows the CAT scans of this patient from day 5 before surgery out to almost a year. And you can see the tumor, normally this tumor untreated would just continue to grow until the patient died. And they die in typically, as I mentioned, about 8 months or so, plus or minus. This patient showed involution and kind of drying out of the tumor shell and then shrinking of the tumor area out to about a year. And this subject was alive at the last follow-up, which was actually in July of this year, and it survived now 18 months, and average survival again is about 8 months. So the plan for our brain cancer development program is to complete the phase 1 trial enrollment. And as I mentioned, that's funded by the NCI. We're manufacturing product and scaling that, so we'll be ready for a phase 3 trial or pivotal trial by the end of 2021. We've actually sought orphan drug designation. We've actually received that by the FDA. And we've also sought fast track designation by the FDA, which we've also received. We're also in the process of planning to initiate an adaptive design phase 2 clinical trial for approval in the second half of 2021. This therapy and the ability to target specific tumors with a catheter and deliver super high amounts of radiation can be useful for a number of other indications using the same drug. 3 that we have very interesting preclinical studies in rodents, not in patients, showing that it might work are leptomeningeal carcinoma, and in the US it affects about 100,000 patients per year, peritoneal carcinomatosis, and head and neck cancer associated with smoking or infections affecting about 50,000 patients per year. And in summary for each of those, and this has all been published, that leptomeningeal carcinoma, which is tumor lining of the cerebrospinal fluid cavity of the brain, results in a significant reduction in tumor size, suggesting that it may have a therapeutic effect. And we hope that that will go into the clinic sometime next year. For peritoneal carcinomatosis of the abdomen, the injection, again, single treatment, shows a potential improved efficacy and safety in animals using the same RNL drug. And then in recurrent head and neck cancer, also it shows that RNL in head and neck cancer has minimal side effects and shows evidence of efficacy using convection enhanced delivery into those residual tumors that are unable to be treated by surgery or typical external beam irradiation. So there are also a number of other potential indications of this particular liposomal bound isotope in a number of tumors where we can target them directly from the outside in. As I mentioned, we also have 2 other clinical stage drugs, both of which we're looking for partners, particularly in Europe and in Asia and China, one of which is Docid Plus. It's a phase 2 ready drug. We've completed the phase 1. It's a next generation formulation of the very successful drug Taxotere, which had peak revenues of about $2 billion per year as a Sanofi product. We've completed a 14 preclinical studies and a 29 patient single center phase 1 study showing that it appears to be better tolerated than Taxotere and demonstrates improved efficacy without increasing the concomitant toxicity in those patients. Also, we have a generic drug that has completed its bioequivalency trial in Europe and potentially is useful to treat 4 cancers as a bioequivalent drug to Calyx. There are no bioequivalent drugs to Calyx, which is liposomal doxorubicin, in Europe, and we're actively looking for partners in Europe for this particular drug. As I mentioned, we run the drug virtually. We're very cash conscious. We have a R&D manufacturing facility in San Antonio, Texas, that's fully capitalized. The company has about 12 to 18 months of cash, depending on our burn rate, and has about 4.5 million shares outstanding and 3 million in the money warrants. And we have about 4.3 million in debt that expires in 2024, and we're currently paying interest only on that. To conclude, just some forthcoming milestones for the company in the relatively near term. We're in the process of optimizing our regulatory strategy for RNL in recurrent glioblastoma. In other words, how do we get this to the market as quickly and cost efficiently as possible? We intend to complete enrollment in our RESPECT phase 1 dose finding trial around the end of the year, and then we'll follow those patients into 2021. We're investing significantly in the chemistry, manufacturing controls, and commercial scale-up activities for RNL. We've initiated the market access activities in planning for market launch and reimbursement. We're in the early stages of that, but for RNL and the recurrent glioblastoma market. We are actively planning a phase 2 pivotal trial for this drug on the heels of the phase 1 data. The phase 1 data will be presented at the November 19th Society for Neuro-Oncology meeting. We were recently accepted for that, and so that data can be found there, or you can see it on our website thereafter. So we're presenting that phase 1 data in its entirety up to date at that meeting, SNO, in mid-November. We're also completing IND-enabling studies on the follow-on indications for RNL, and then we're looking for partners both for RNL and for our 2 clinical stage drugs. So with that, let me just thank you for being on the call. And if we have time for questions, I can certainly answer those. If not, feel free to email me at mhedrick@plustherapeutics.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We got a few questions here. The first one being, are there any talks so far regarding some potential partnership opportunities in your RNL applications?
I'm sorry, can you say that again, please?
Are there any talks so far regarding partnership opportunities for RNL?
Yes, we're in active discussions for all 3 of our clinical stage drugs.
Okay, good. And the next one from Mark is the nanotech package proprietary to PLUS?
Yeah, the technology is proprietary. It's proprietary regarding our Docid Plus asset in terms of the manufacturing and the development of the unique liposome to deliver docetaxel in a liposomal format, as well the RNL platform and the chelation technology for putting heavy radioisotopes into liposomes is also proprietary.
Okay, good. What's your current burn rate again?
We burn about $500,000 per month.
Okay, and the final question coming from here is that the Chinese side is that is asking you about taxes. So how supportive is the taxes in terms of incentive grants for businesses like PLUS? Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually moved to Texas primarily for two reasons. Number one, we were able to acquire a fully capitalized 10,000 square foot GMP manufacturing and R&D plant in San Antonio. In addition, as you may know, the second largest funder of cancer cancer research is actually the state of Texas. It's now, its voters have approved $6 billion specifically for Texas-based companies and institutions developing cancer. And this RNL technology was actually funded by a seed grant from the state of Texas. That's called CPRIT, CPRIT, and it's our intention to continue to acquire and develop new cancer technologies and leverage that as a leading oncology company based in the state of Texas.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that's it for the questions here, Mark. And thank you for your time here today, sharing your story. Your technology platform definitely is very impressive.
Yep. Thank you, Gilbert.